Decoder Talks, Stephen Greer and Cosmic Contact. Good evening, listeners and viewers of Decoder Talks and Ether Decoder. Today we are discussing a theme that blends science, politics, spirituality and conspiracy. A story that begins with an emergency room physician in the United States and transforms into one of the most audacious narratives about the future of humanity. The central character of this edition is Stephen Greer, a doctor, researcher and activist who has become known as a sort of ambassador for extraterrestrial civilizations. He is the creator of the CE5 movement, or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which proposes something unprecedented: that we, ordinary human beings, can establish direct and peaceful communication with non-human intelligences using consciousness, group protocols, and a diplomatic posture. Who is Stephen Greer? Stephen M. Greer was born in 1955 in North Carolina and worked for many years as an emergency room physician. However, from a young age, he had experiences linked to anomalous phenomena and UFO sightings. These experiences led him to investigate the extraterrestrial phenomenon in depth. In the 1990s, Greer founded the CSET, Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and later the Disclosure Project, with the bold goal of bringing together military personnel, scientists and official witnesses willing to reveal what was really happening behind the scenes of government agencies regarding UFOs and contact with non-human intelligences. Greer presents himself not as a common conspiracy theorist, but as someone who believes he has access to privileged information from high-ranking military officials, aerospace engineers, and intelligence agents. He himself claims to have coordinated documented encounters with unidentified craft during CE5 operations. His central proposal is that humanity must adopt interplanetary and interdimensional diplomacy, rejecting the militaristic logic of capturing ships and beings and replacing it with a peaceful coexistence that could radically transform our civilization. Greer's warning. Stephen Greer is emphatic in his statements. These civilizations in space are absolutely fed up with the way we are dealing with them. And let me be clear, this is a warning and it is also a threat. If we continue on this path, we will create a danger not only for ourselves, but for peaceful civilizations in other dimensions. The central point is that, according to Greer, there is an active policy of confrontation and hostility on the part of secret military and corporate programs against extraterrestrial craft. He details that electromagnetic and psychic technologies have been used to force UFOs to crash, capture their crew, and then attempt to extract technology for military or commercial purposes. For Greer, this path is unsustainable. He argues that true contact must be made in a diplomatic, conscious, and respectful manner without the arrogance of invoking or commanding superior beings, but rather by inviting them into a relationship of trust. What is CE5? One of the pillars of Greer's vision is CE5, the so-called Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind. In Hynek's classic typology, close encounters of the first to the third kind describe the observation of lights, objects, and beings. The fourth kind adds abduction. Greer, however, proposes the fifth kind, human ET contact consciously initiated by us through protocols of collective meditation, telepathy, peaceful intentions, and spiritual openness. According to him, it is not about curiosity or spectacle, but about building bridges between intelligent species. He emphasizes that CE5 groups do not want technology to dominate, nor light shows for entertainment. The goal is to build a relationship that allows humanity to access a future of universal peace. The hidden technologies. In his book, Contact: Countdown to Transformation, Greer insists on very controversial issues, such as the technologies that could end the energy crisis and environmental collapse already exist. They are zero-point energy technologies and advanced field propulsion obtained from the study of recovered craft. However, they are kept secret by hidden military and corporate programs controlled by billionaire interests. Greer argues that if such technologies were released, it would be possible to eliminate poverty, end pollution, and inaugurate a new era of abundance. But the interest of economic elites blocks this process, as they are more concerned with maintaining their power and profits. This is one of the most controversial points. Greer connects the UFO phenomenon not only to science, but to global geopolitics and economics, directly accusing corporations and governments of maintaining an informational blockade. He clarifies that human craft, obviously hidden from the general public, are on the same technological level as the craft that visit us, and I agree with that, since there is much evidence for it for those who study the subject. But my biggest question is, who is in control of this terrestrial space fleet, the Space Force? So let's connect the dots on this invisible chessboard of power. The evidence suggests that most of these advanced technologies not only exist, but are being developed in underground military bases, and perhaps in outer space. Many doubt it, treating it as fiction. But I witnessed something disturbing in the Canary Islands. and I wasn't the only one. A few years ago, a television station filmed one of these craft descending near the Denver airport. The most intriguing part, it always appears at the same times. It seems like a regular space shuttle, a secret route for VIP integration. Its movement is so fast it escapes the naked eye, but not professional lenses. And here is the crucial point. This doesn't seem like the activity of supposed extraterrestrials to me. It's high-level human operation. Unless, of course, the ETS have a meeting scheduled at Disney and are catching a connecting flight at the Colorado airport. Transdimensional civilizations. Another relevant aspect is the notion that extraterrestrials are not just visitors from other planets, but also from other dimensions and densities of existence. Greer cites military personnel who confided in him about the existence of psionic technologies capable of interacting with these dimensions. He warns that many so-called abductees were not taken by extraterrestrials, but by biotechnological drones created in secret human programs, precisely to confuse public opinion and reinforce the narrative of fear. This vision aligns with experiences reported in his book. People who participated in CE5 sessions describe profoundly positive contacts with beings that radiate compassion and wisdom, in direct contrast to the terror-linked accounts of abductions, the risk of the false enemy. One of the most unsettling points in Greer's talk is his warning about a possible cosmic false flag. According to him, since the 1970s, there have been detailed plans to stage an alien attack, not by real extraterrestrials, but by craft built on Earth, meticulously designed to mimic UFOs. This fictitious scenario would serve as a pretext to unify humanity under a single global military government, justify trillion-dollar spending on defense and security, and establish a regime of total control over the population. Greer bases this allegation on an account attributed to Wernher von Braun, the renowned German scientist recruited by the United States after the Second World War. According to one of his assistants, Dr. Carol Rosin, to whom von Braun allegedly confided this information after he was hospitalized with cancer, requesting that she assist him directly, he ended up confessing to her, warning that geopolitical manipulation would follow a predictable script. First the communist threat, then the terrorist threat, and finally the alien threat. Always the same mechanism. Create an external enemy to maintain the cycle of fear, dependence, and concentration of power.
The strategy that Wernher von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie.
This revelation gains even more weight when we consider the context in which von Braun operated. Although publicly he was at the forefront of the American space program focused on conventional chemical propulsion rockets, it is plausible that he had access to more restricted circles, where former German colleagues worked on secret projects involving advanced technologies, such as electromagnetic propulsion and systems based on gravitational fields. And we are not alone in this perception. Numerous testimonies, documents, and narratives from independent sources converge on the same scenario: the possibility that UFO phenomena are being instrumentalized as a tool for social engineering on a planetary scale. Furthermore, it is enough to reason with logic and set aside Hollywood archetypes to realize that an alien invasion of Earth makes no sense at all. The galaxy is vast, with billions of potentially habitable or resource-rich planets. Why would a civilization capable of traveling between stars be interested in our small world? Earth is not exceptional in terms of mineral resources. Nearby asteroids contain much higher concentrations of rare metals, like platinum or iridium, and would be infinitely more efficient targets for space mining. Even gold, often cited as a motive for a supposed invasion, has limited use in advanced technology and most of the time is merely a symbol of stored value. More than that, any civilization capable of crossing interstellar distances would necessarily have mastered technologies we can barely imagine, be it the manipulation of the fabric of the universe, faster than light travel, or even systems based on unconventional physics, such as so-called etheric fields or displacements through counterspace. For beings with that level of mastery, the idea of invading a primitive planet to extract resources would be, at the very least, absurd. Therefore, if there is anything to fear, perhaps it is not the aliens, but the way the idea of them can be used against us. Therefore, let us move away from the shallow thinking of science fiction cliches and focus philosophically on the current scenario. First, however, let us make an incursion into another incident that reinforces Stephen Greer's thesis, evidencing that these craft are mostly human technology. Now let's dive into the shadows of a story that challenges our official understanding, a chronicle that unfolds between the New Mexico desert in 1947 and the hidden corridors of power that perhaps still shape us today. In his work, Roswell and the Reich, The Nazi Connection, author Joseph P. Farrell does not offer a mere rereading. He invites us to unravel a mystery, a truth so explosive that its concealment would have required, and perhaps still requires, the most complex webs of disinformation and technological control. The narrative that emerges is that the Roswell incident was not what we were told, neither extraterrestrial flying saucers nor common weather balloons, but something much more sinister and of terrestrial origin, with disturbing echoes in how the deep state manipulates technology and truth today. Farrell positions himself in a no-man's land, a crucial methodological viewpoint. He is not a ufologist, nor does he claim to be one. However, he agrees with the classic Roswell investigators that something truly extraordinary happened in New Mexico in July 1947. This event was so impactful that it sent shockwaves throughout the US government and armed forces, leading to extraordinary efforts to recover the debris and then orchestrate no less than 4 distinct versions of what really occurred. Yet Farrell rejects the extraterrestrial mythology of Roswell as deeply flawed and questionable. If the government is not to be believed in its later explanations, considered crazy, why should we believe the first of them, the craziest of all? The later explanations, he argues, seem to be deliberately architected psychological operations, not to annihilate the extraterrestrial scenario, but to keep it alive. The central questions Farrell seeks to answer are incisive. Why, if it were terrestrial technology, would it be Nazi? Did the Nazis have that capability? And more importantly, cui bono? Who benefits from the myth of extraterrestrials? The debris, not extraterrestrial, but exotic and terrestrial. Farrell identifies a deliberately established Roswell dialectic by the Air Force. On one side, the extraterrestrial and extraordinary. On the other, the terrestrial, ordinary, and mundane, represented by the balloons. This dialectic, with its contradictory versions, is a clear sign of crisis management and a deliberate effort to divert attention from a technologically and politically explosive truth. Interestingly, Farrell highlights that the core descriptions from the primary witnesses, like Major Jesse Marcel, his son Jesse Marcel Jr., and the children of Mac Brazel, Bill and Bessie Brazel Schreiber, are the heart of the anomaly. They described the material light as tinfoil, but with great tensile strength, impossible to cut, crumple, or burn, and a metal with memory that returned to its original shape without leaving creases when crumpled. Marcel also mentioned a porous metal through which one could blow. Even more intriguing were the hieroglyphics, or writings similar to Chinese or Japanese, seen on some fragments. In earlier works, Farrell noted a strong similarity between Native American petroglyphs and the effects of plasma pinch observed in physics laboratories. Although the idea that these drawings represent a physical phenomenon is, in a way, a bold interpretation, despite the unique similarity, I firmly believe that these machines operate with principles related to plasma physics, especially considering that the United States Navy holds patents linked to Project Aurora, like the famous TR-3B craft often sighted in the skies, an aircraft in a triangular shape with 4 intense lights on its underside. They are probably plasma reactors in which magnetic fields hold vortices of moving plasma. These vortices not only produce thrust, but interact with the very structure of the ether, the fundamental medium described by the ancients and ignored by modern physics. According to recent interpretations, gravity is not a field in the traditional sense, but rather a centripetal vector, a return flow of the ether to a state of rest inertia. When a system manipulates the density and elasticity of this ether, a pressure gradient is created in the surrounding space. The practical result is that the object falls into that zone of lower ethereal pressure, which is exactly what we call gravity. Thus, by using plasma vortices and intense magnetic fields, as in a Z-pinch, these craft could perturb and reorganize the ether around them. By compressing and spinning plasma at extreme speeds, a kind of centripetal hole is created in the ether, a state of high charge density where the gravitational vector reverses or neutralizes. In other words, it is not that the craft creates anti-gravity in the sci-fi sense. It creates a local environment where the pressure of the ether is so altered that gravity ceases to act as we know it, leading to the collapse of apparent weight. These machines represent, possibly, only the first phase of this technology, operated by the United States Armed Forces or the military-industrial complex. The so-called deep state probably holds more advanced models, vehicles that not only nullify gravity, but navigate the very flow lines of the ether, possibly transiting between the atmosphere, space, and perhaps correlated dimensions. To understand how this could work on a practical scale, it is worth observing how ZAP energy achieves Z-pinch fusion in its experimental core. It is a remarkable effect that helps explain the link between plasma physics and field propulsion. The process begins with a small injection of gas, typically deuterium, into a high vacuum chamber. As the gas expands, an extremely powerful electrical pulse is discharged through it, instantly ionizing the gas and turning it into a high-energy plasma. This current flowing through the plasma generates a strong magnetic field, which compresses and accelerates the plasma column along the chamber. When the plasma reaches the central region, it converges around an internal electrode, collapsing into a narrow, dense filament, a phenomenon known as a Z-pinch. The self-induced magnetic field then compresses the plasma to extreme densities and temperatures, reaching the conditions necessary for nuclear fusion over 100 million degrees Celsius in just a few microseconds. Now imagine applying this same principle, not just to generate energy, but to bend and spin the local ether itself. If a craft's plasma reactor acts as a dynamic Z-pinch, it creates centripetal torsion vortices in the ether. These vortices reorganize the rest vector of the fundamental medium, redistributing the lines of inertia and, consequently, nullifying the inertial mass of the involved object. In this state, the craft ceases to be a material body in the traditional sense. Its structure, composed of condensates of the ether itself, is momentarily reconverted into a coherent energy form, a field of pure, stabilized inertia. Thus, a small gradient of a focused electric or magnetic field acts not upon mass, but upon ether density, moving the assembly with almost infinite efficiency. In other words, the craft is not pulled. It follows the local rest vector of the ether, which the internal system continuously redefines. Propulsion, therefore, is neither reactive nor aerodynamic. It is inertially neutral. An electrical impulse modulates the density field, and the point of rest shifts, and the craft follows this new center of equilibrium. During operation, fusion reactions or plasma flows not only provide electrical energy, but sustain the ether density gradient necessary to maintain inertial nullification. The pulse dissipates naturally, but a fast repetition cycle maintains a permanent coherent field, resulting in sustained flight without conventional propulsion. In summary, gravity does not pull bodies. It is the natural tendency of the ether to return to density equilibrium. Manipulating this equilibrium through plasma and magnetodielectric fields allows for the neutralization or reversal of the gravitational vector. This would be the basis for the instantaneous, G-forceless maneuvers attributed to certain advanced vehicles. The internal and external gravitational fields become congruent, so that all bodies inside move together within the same rest vector. The issue of the bodies is equally fundamental to Farrell's thesis. He argues that most accounts of extraterrestrial bodies come from inconsistent, second-hand, or discredited testimonies. Witnesses like Glenn Dennis, the deceased nurse, Melvin Braun, through his daughter Beverly Bean, whose stories changed over time, and Frank Kaufman are considered unreliable. Discarding these accounts, the physiological characteristics of the bodies when described are remarkably human or ordinary. Farrell explores Nick Redfern's theory in Body Snatchers in the Desert, which suggests a distinctly darker explanation. The bodies were not alien, but rather Japanese victims with progeria syndrome or other conditions used as human guinea pigs in high-altitude experiments conducted by Japanese doctors from the notorious Unit 731 and by Nazi scientists brought to the US after the war. Redfern cites an anonymous witness nicknamed the Black Widow who worked at Oak Ridge and described the bodies as human, impaired humans, and from Japan or China, some with larger heads, 6 fingers, and features similar to progeria. This theory explains the description of alien but not extraterrestrial and provides an unthinkable and horrifying political motivation for the cover-up. It would link the US government to war atrocities committed by its enemies. This explanation, therefore, would banish forever extraterrestrial bodies from the Roswell story. The documents. Coded messages of a Nazi connection. Farrell analyzes authentic and contested documents, revealing how many contain clues about the Nazi connection, often ignored or intentionally diverted by traditional researchers. The Twining-Shulgin Memoranda, authentic. These crucial documents, often cited by proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis, are reinterpreted by Farrell. The Shulgin Memo from October 1947 discusses characteristics of flying discs, absence of sound except for an occasional roar, extreme maneuverability, oval or disc shape, and absence of exhaust trail except under high-performance conditions when a bluish color or brown smoke was observed. Most revealing is Shulgin's assumption that the phenomenon was a manned aircraft of Russian origin, based on the thinking and achievements of the Germans. He was actively asking about the Horton brothers and their flying wing projects and where these scientists were located. The references to boundary layer control methods by suction, blowing, or a combination of both, and unconventional fabrication methods to achieve extreme lightness and structural stability point directly to Nazi technology. Farrell argues that the Majestic 12 documents are probably instruments of deliberate disinformation, a mixture of truth and lie created by insiders with intimate knowledge. Eisenhower Briefing Document. This document lists General Robert Montague as a member of the supposed Majestic 12 group. Montague was commander of Fort Bliss, Texas, the entry point for many Nazi scientists from Operation Paperclip. For Farrell, the presence of Montague supervising these scientists is a subtle and intentional clue of a Nazi connection, contradicting the logic of a purely extraterrestrial narrative. Farrell's thesis culminates in the existence of a post-war Nazi international, an extraterritorial and independent state with resources and advanced technology. He argues that secret paperclip détente agreements between elements of the Anglo-American elite and figures like Allen Dulles and the spy network of Nazi General Reinhard Gehlen allowed the Nazis to maintain a hidden third force on the world stage. This organization would have continued its independent research, keeping the most radical and exotic technologies. The deliberate disinformation of Philip Corso in the day after Roswell, who attributed the laser, integrated circuits, fiber optics, Kevlar, particle beam weapons, and electromagnetic propulsion to the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial technology from Roswell, is seen by Farrell as a disguised confession. Corso, an intelligence officer active in Operation Paperclip, was subtly pointing to technologies of Nazi origin. Farrell's chronicle resonates with modern concerns about the deep state and technological control for several reasons. Narrative manipulation. The Roswell dialectic, the creation of official and alternative extraterrestrial versions to divert attention from the truth, is a classic model of perception management, observable today in the dissemination of information and disinformation. This theory is also disseminated by David Icke. The insistence on mutually exclusive but equally misleading narratives serves to bury the more uncomfortable third option: secret technology and suppression. The idea that technologies as advanced as the Nazis, field propulsion, memory metals, high-power lasers, could remain classified for decades challenges the belief that everything obsolete is declassified. Farrell argues that there is a broad and extensive body of data that strongly suggests that promising human technologies are quickly suppressed and marginalized. This indicates that the deep state controls not only what is revealed but also what is prevented from public development to maintain a strategic advantage. The secret international and hidden agendas, Farrell's Nazi International and Operation Paperclip, describe a network of power beyond nation-states operating with its own objectives. This idea mirrors modern concerns about the influence of hidden interest groups, powerful lobbyists, and transnational corporations that shape global policies and technology outside of democratic control. The dishonest element within intelligence agencies, with a fascist or national socialist agenda, suggests a layer of control that transcends elected governments. The quest for dominant weapons. The implication that the Nazi Bell and field propulsion technologies could manipulate gravity, provide unlimited energy, and even have planet-busting potential reveals the relentless pursuit of weapons of absolute power. The concealment of these capabilities is central to maintaining global power and disguising who really holds the most disruptive technologies. The Nazi scenario offers a politically explosive rationalization for the cover-up, admitting that a defeated enemy continued to operate with superior technology on American soil would be an unthinkable political embarrassment. Today, this national security logic continues to be invoked to justify secrecy around military and technological programs, even as threats evolve. Truman's order to shoot down UFOs, which Farrell reinterprets as a response to hostile terrestrial technology, makes sense in this context of paranoia and uncertainty. It is speculated that ancient totalitarian ideologies have not simply disappeared, but have metamorphosed, finding resonance in contemporary power structures. Although it is crucial to believe in the potential of human goodwill, it is naive to ignore the existence of hidden agendas and individuals who operate in the shadows of the public interest. In this context, one questions whether the full disclosure of what may exist in ultra-secret underground facilities, the so-called DUMBS, would be beneficial for society at its current stage. A disturbing hypothesis suggests that a technological elite or even a parallel human civilization is already benefiting from advanced knowledge and technologies far from the public eye. From this perspective, the mass of the population could be seen as an unconscious workforce, producing goods to sustain these supposedly self-sufficient enclaves. Finally, all of these are still conjectures. It is up to us to decide whether to take them as terrifying warnings or as an incentive to seek greater transparency. Given the current directions, however, it is difficult to maintain unbridled optimism. In summary, Farrell's work forces us to consider that the Roswell story is not just a tale of science fiction or a military hoax, but a dark chapter of human history where truth, technology, and power intertwined in a lethal dance of secrets. The Roswell dialectic did not end. It continues to operate, and the way we perceive technology and official narratives is perhaps its most enduring legacy. The revelation that the enemy we supposedly defeated in 1945 not only survived but continued to innovate in secret raises a disturbing question. Who really controls the reins of our technological future, and what is still hidden in the shadows of our deep state? The mystery of Roswell, therefore, is not just about what fell in that desert in 1947. It is about what that fall teaches us about the true sources of power and control that subtly and often imperceptibly continue to shape our world. Farrell goes in the same direction as Greer, and although he does not consider himself a ufologist, he argues that something truly extraordinary and exotic fell in New Mexico, leading to a massive cover-up. However, he rejects both the standard extraterrestrial explanation and the official mogul balloon theory. Instead, Farrell proposes that what fell was of entirely terrestrial origin, but politically explosive, an aircraft from an independent post-war Nazi project. Farrell's work analyzes the different articulations of the Roswell story and highlights the main evidence that, for Farrell, points to the Nazi connection. Joseph P. Farrell, in Roswell and the Reich, builds a convincing and well-founded case that the Roswell incident was not a trivial balloon nor an extraterrestrial craft, but rather the crash of an advanced and exotic technology of Nazi origin, probably from a secret program that continued after the Second World War. The intense military cover-up was motivated by the politically explosive nature of the discovery, which would reveal that the Nazi enemy was more alive and technologically advanced than assumed. Greer's message, human awakening. The core of Greer's discourse is clear. We cannot expect extraterrestrials to solve our problems. He warns that a direct intervention from them would be interpreted as a hostile invasion, since our culture has been conditioned for decades by films, propaganda, and psychological operations to fear the cosmic other. The consequence of this could be a devastating conflict, a clash of interplanetary civilizations that humanity would have no way of winning. Thus, the responsibility falls on us to awaken, to demand transparency from governments, to pressure for the release of hidden technologies, and to promote peaceful contact as citizens. Stephen Greer is a controversial figure. For some, a visionary who offers a path of cosmic peace. For others, a conspiracy theorist who mixes science and spirituality in unverifiable doses. But one cannot deny his ideas raise provocative questions. What if we really already have access to revolutionary technologies kept secret? What if the negative image of extraterrestrials is, in part, an artificial construction to keep humanity in fear? Are we prepared for an interdimensional dialogue that transcends not only politics, but the very definition of civilization? In the end, Greer's message echoes as a call to rethink our position in the cosmos. One universe, one people. The future of Earth does not depend on weapons, but on consciousness. First contact will not be made by governments, but by citizens who are willing to open their hearts and minds to a new kind of relationship. This was today's Decoder Talks. If you liked it, share, comment, and stay with us for more episodes where science, mystery, and consciousness meet.